Alright, hi everyone. This is gonna be a little bit different than what we normally do. Jake and I are gonna be taking turns working on solo videos in between the normal videos we typically do, so we can put out more content more regularly. And for my first one, I decided to do something that I don't think I could convince Jake to do necessarily, no matter how much I want to do it. So, what we're gonna do today is we're gonna look at bad fan fiction. I have a certain affinity for fanfiction, and I want to make it clear before I read some of these that please don't search these out. Please don't be mean to anyone who wrote these, because creative writing is a wonderful thing, and if these people, even if some of the stuff isn't great, everyone has to start somewhere. You know what I mean? So, respect the people who are writing these, even though we're going to have some fun looking at these today. Now, specifically, we're not looking at just any fan fiction. Today we're going to be looking at Star Trek fan fiction. Yes, Star Trek fan fiction, the original bromance-turned-romance fan fiction. However, today we're not going to be looking at the original series, we're very specifically going to be looking at Star Trek The Next Generation fan fiction in honor of Star Trek Picard, which recently started. This isn't an ad or anything, I just genuinely like that show, and I wanted to share my pain with you. So, without further ado, let's take a look at some Star Trek fan fiction. The first one we're going to be looking at is, I believe, a short Q story, Q played by John Delancey. And I think it involves romance. I haven't read the whole thing. Let's see how it goes. I was on my way back to my quarters. I had finally got done with my shift, and not to mention got back from an away mission, which went well. Data and I found a planet that had dilithium crystals on it. Captain Picard sent us out to collect some for the warp core. I sure was glad when we found out the planet was uninhabited, so it made them easier to retrieve. But I deserved some well-needed rest. As I was walking, I noticed an angry captain walk past me. Wonder what happened while I was gone. I shrugged and kept on walking. When I rammed into someone, I took a step back, getting ready to say sorry. Now, fair enough. All of these things are things that could theoretically happen on the Star Trek Enterprise. I don't disagree. The prose could use a little bit of work. It's also strange to word it as, an angry captain walk past me. Considering there's one captain per ship, you could have said, like, hey, Picard. It's also a little casual, but whatever. I'm terribly sorry about that. I cut myself off when I looked to see who it was. It was a tall man, his hair in short black curls. He wore an admiral's uniform, all red, black shoulders with a black V-shaped cutout trimmed in gold. Oh, Admiral, I'm so sorry, I said quickly when I realized he was one. I had no idea what we were expecting one on the board. Is that why the captain was so angry? In fairness, that's completely in line with Star Trek. Admirals are fucking evil. I wouldn't want one on the ship either. You better be sorry. You know I am a rather important person. What is your name, ensign? He asked, standing tall and proud. It is Zorva. I stood there looking at him. And you are? I am Q, he stated simply. Q? That's it? It is just Q? What an odd name you have, Admiral Q, I said jokingly. Okay, alright. So, I don't know exactly when in the continuity of Star Trek The Next Generation this one is supposed to take place on. And if you want to write a romance with Q and someone, that's fine. Star Trek has a quite long and storied history of romance fan fiction. Fine. But if you want the crew member not to know who Q is, why are you setting this on the Enterprise, the one ship other than Voyager that has had multiple run-ins with Q and the entire crew would probably know about this. Okay, whatever. But then my eyes grew. I just realized I had made fun of an admiral's name. I looked up at him. His eyes were dark, those of a predator watching their prey. He had this sudden smirk spread across his lips. I took a step back like I was about to turn and run for my life. "Oh, I am afraid I'm going to have to report you for disrespecting an admiral," he grinned as he took a step towards me. I felt my heart race and my throat getting dry. No, this can't be happening. You told yourself repeatedly. "Leave her alone, Q." I sighed in relief. It was Riker. I'd like to imagine he walked up with his, Captain Morgan leg up on a chair stance. "You mortals are no fun. I will see you again, Zorva." With a snap of his fingers, he vanished. I did a double take and couldn't believe what I had just witnessed. "Don't mind our guest, Zorva. He's only staying for a few days, or at least I hope he is." Riker gave me his best "I am not annoyed" smile. That's a little clumsy. Alright. "Tell me about him." I was quite serious about this. Something about Q made me want to learn more about him. Could it be that he disappeared in front of your eyes with a snap of his fingers, and you're in Starfleet, an exploratory science organization? Yeah, I'd be a little curious too, although I don't think that's what she's curious about. "Well, let me tell you what the captain said about him. He's devious and amoral and unreliable and irresponsible and definitely not to be trusted. I myself agree with the captain. You need to be careful, Zorva. He's not the man to be falling for." Riker gave me a stern look and turned to walk away. I rolled my eyes and walked to my quarters. You know, like the teenagers who are in Starfleet, being mad and treating their first officers like their parents. Once I entered my room, I walked over to my chair and plopped down on it. Something was oddly off. It was way too warm. I felt like I was sitting on someone. "Comfortable?" I jumped out of my chair and turned to face whoever was in my room. "Q! I couldn't believe this. What are you doing in my room?" I gave a questioning look mixed with a serious tone. Okay, so Q, omnipotent god being, has used his powers to trick a woman into sitting on his lap. Yeah, that's about right. "Well, I thought I would pay you a personal visit. Besides, you caught my attention. I never met such a beautiful Bajoran until now." Oh, she's a Bajoran. Okay, they didn't mention that until this very moment. Interesting. "He urged for me to come back to him." I felt myself blush. Now that was something I did not hear every day, or, well, for this matter, at all. I wasn't sure what to do, so I stood there staring at him. He then gets up and steps toward me. I could feel myself becoming intimidated with those eyes locked on me. It was hard not to be. As you probably know, I'll be sticking around. I think this would be a perfect opportunity for us to get to know each other better. He stood right in front of me, giving this puppy-eyed look. I'm awfully busy, Q, and besides, I'm sure you will grow bored of me. I do not have powers like you, or anything special for that matter." Okay, so, Zorva, in the last hour, has learned that there is an omnipotent being named Q. In fact, she doesn't even know he's omnipotent. Riker has just said to her, "Hey, don't worry about him. Captain doesn't like him, but it's fine. Don't pay attention to him." Now he has appeared in your room, is clearly flirting with you. He's broken in. And okay, you know he has powers, but you think he's gonna be bored of you because you don't have powers, but at what point, why are you horny for Q? I understand in, like, a fourth wall breaking reason is that the person who wrote this clearly is into John Delancey and the character of Q. But within the logic of the story, you need a reason Zorva isn't creeped out by this omnipotent spaceman who has broken into her quarters. Whatever, it's fine. Like I said, a 14-year-old probably wrote this. Everyone has to start somewhere writing. They're putting work into it. I respect that. It is pretty entertaining, though. I find you will be very interesting, actually. A lot more calmer than your captain. I must say, at least you can tolerate me. I think that's the biggest plot hole here. If Q was going to hit on anyone on the crew, it would be Captain Picard. Alright, I will see how this goes, but I'll have to be when my shifts are done, though. I will have to be when my shifts are done. I don't understand what that line means. Or, I convince your captain to let you have a few days of leave, is it? A few days of having some time off did sound nice. I have been working awfully hard since I came aboard, but first, I needed to go see a friend of mine to see what she thinks about this, or has any advice to give, but I will see her in the morning. This is, I feel like you can tell the writer was writing this as they went along, and they didn't necessarily have an outline or a structure for what was going to happen in this story, because it seems like at this point they're like, okay, Zorva's met Q. Q has flirted with her. Q has shown up in her quarters. She's at the point in the story where she's questioning whether or not she should be with him or not. In Twilight, I would argue this is sort of the point where, Bella has heard about the Cullens from her group of friends, and maybe talked it over with them a little bit, but she's not quite sure, like, oh, should I pursue this or not? And Edward's been weird and skipping class because she smells like heroin or whatever. It's been a while since I read the book. Anyway, the point is, it seems at this point they're like, okay, she needs to talk to someone about this to make a decision, so there's actually motivation for her to pursue Q or allow Q to pursue her. Oh, I'll write in a friend. She's going to meet a friend. She will talk to friend. Okay, fine. It's utilitarian, I'll put it that way. Why don't you leave so I can get some sleep, I said, folding my arms across my chest and waiting for him to go. As you wish. I will see you later then. He snapped his fingers and vanished. I took my uniform off and slipped into something more comfortable, then proceeded to my bed. Once I was there, I crashed on it and fell asleep on impact. For the record, by the way, if the sentence structure sounds awkward the way I'm reading it, it's because there's almost no punctuation anywhere, so words kind of go together and it isn't clear where the pauses should be. This person, I don't think, likes commas very much, so I apologize for that. The next morning, I went to 10 Forward to meet up with a friend to see if I should pursue this relationship with Q. Computer, coffee with creamer. I sighed softly as I waited for my coffee. There you are. Now, what is this I hear about how Q wants to get to know you better? I looked over at Aurora. Well, for some reason, he's taken an interest in me, and wants to get to know me. But I do know if I should. I'd assume that's supposed to be don't. I picked my coffee cup up. I mean, the things people say about him make me wonder if I should not trust him, let alone give him a chance, even though I agreed already to do so. I groaned once we sat down at a table. Now I'm imagining the scene where Zorba's asking people, like, hey, you've heard about Q, should I avoid him? What's going on with him? And someone's like, yeah, one time, he made the captain Robin Hood, so maybe avoid him. Well, if life wasn't about taking risks, it would be no fun. I think you should go for it. I thought the same thing as well. Good news, Picard agreed to give you some shore leave for all the hard work you put in. Aurora and I both jumped when Q suddenly appeared at our table. I kind of assumed, much like a Navy ship or any sort of ship, because that's clearly the structure from which Star Trek gets, or Starfleet gets, like, its structure. It's very much like a sea ship or a submarine or something. That's because Gene Roddenberry wrote it in such a way that it would be like that because he was, I believe, in the Navy in World War II. Hold on, I'm getting a phone call. Sorry about that. Anyway, my point is, it seems to me that there's no reason for Captain Picard to dole out shore leave individually. It seems like they're probably on a schedule, more or less, and like when they go to Ryza, they'll be like, okay, we'll take this shift and you can get these days off, and then they'll swap with other people, whatever. I don't think he doles out shore leave individually. Aurora and I both jumped when Q suddenly appeared at our table. So, where shall we go, he asked. I hear Ryza is nice this time of year. You two should go there. I glanced over at Aurora. I couldn't believe she was helping with this. I gave a small smile and diverted my attention to Q. He seemed okay with the idea, but I wasn't really sure about all this. I never really had a relationship before. I think you can tell this was written by a 14-year-old, because they're considering someone flirting with them 3 times a relationship. I don't know, I blurted out. I bit my lip and saw Q was giving me a look of concern. I promise you that we'll have a fun time. I had no doubt that we wouldn't. I then saw a quick flash of light, which was replaced by a bouquet of flowers. Poor Toy Belle. He hands the flowers over. I assume that means, like, for you, beauty, something like that. I blushed bright red as I took them. How could anyone think this man was devious and not to be trusted when he acts like a cute puppy?
How old were you when your father was killed? 9, 10 years old, and you're still not over it? Perhaps I should introduce myself. I imagine you've heard of me, though, Q. It's short for Q. It was I, you know, who introduced Picard to the Borg, and it's because of me that 10 years ago the Borg came to Wolf 359 and found that fleet of ships and found your father and killed them all.
Alright, if you want to go to Ryza, we can be there. Wonderful! Without any hesitation, he snaps his fingers and brings us there. The sensation of vanishing and reappearing in another spot was beyond words to describe. Yep, when you're a writer, and you don't know how to describe something that's wondrous, definitely just write, it was beyond words to describe. That'll cover it every time. How did you do that? I was astonished by his power. You've seen him do this before. What? This is a question you should have asked before you let him take you somewhere. What are you doing? Zorba, no! Easily, all I have to do is snap my fingers and I can teleport or get whatever I think of. He gave me a cocky smirk. Sounds like fun. It is quite fun, he snapped his fingers and made a teddy bear appear. When I'm courting an adult woman, I often give them stuffed animals. Maybe contextually, if you're like at a fair or something and it was like, oh haha, we're playing the game. We fucking, I don't know, you've seen movies and you get the big stuffed bear. Here he's just like, I can produce anything in the universe. I could give her 40 bars of gold-pressed latinum. I could produce wonders beyond human comprehension. Build-A-Bear. I knew that my time with him was going to be worth it. I walked up to him, giving him an admirable look. Admirable. Oh, my bad. Look before leaning in to give him a kiss on the lips, which I didn't even expect to give him at all, but something told me to do it. I didn't care if he thought the act was primitive to him. I gripped my hands on the collar of his shirt and deepened the kiss. I was surprised to see that he didn't even recoil away from me. That's what you want to look for when you go in to kiss someone, not recoiling in disgust. That's a mood. I broke the kiss and backed away from him sheepishly. I knew he was going to say how I shouldn't have done that, but when I looked up at him, his fingers were lightly touching his lips, and then he looked at me. What a strange sensation that was. He sounded surprised. It was like I felt a spark between us. He couldn't wrap his head around what had happened. Well, normally that means there must be some kind of connection between us. It sounded cheesy, even saying out loud to him. Again, if you lampshade it and say that something sounds cheesy, it's completely okay to leave it in your writing. Then we must keep continuing these small gestures to make the connection even greater between us. Show me what else these mortals do to express love between each other. Oh god. You would need to stick around longer than just a few days to know what kind of other things couples do. But of course I can show you whatever I know. I giggled and took hold of his hand. This was going to be quite a shore leave, I said to myself as I began walking down to the beach that they had. I wanted to show Q what it is like to watch a sunset on a beach. Q, infinite being, omnipotent, has lived millions of years potentially. Maybe time doesn't even make sense as a concept to him. Never seen a sunset. Alright. So that's the first fan fiction. This is a bad idea. Okay, so that's the first one. That falls into the category of what is essentially self-insert romance fanfiction, and there's plenty of that, but that's not the only kind of fanfiction out there. So I'm going to do one more for today's episode, and then we will revisit again at some point. This one falls into the category of, how do I put this? Scenes that conceivably could maybe exist. At the very least, it seems like the person is trying to create an authentic scene for Star Trek, but also inserting other aspects that would not be in Star Trek as it originally aired. Now, this one's going to involve more modern pulp, more modern pulp. More modern pop cultural references. If you watch the Orville, they do this kind of thing more often, because in Star Trek The Next Generation, they would sometimes reference things like Sherlock Holmes. Dave's a big fan of Sherlock Holmes. Picard's a fan of that detective Dixon Hill, I believe is his name. So they were aware of a lot of media and stuff from the 20th century and prior, but the show didn't really go beyond that, mostly because I feel as a script, you don't want to put in, hey, this thing that came out 5 years ago, yeah, people are going to be talking about this in 300 years or 200 years or whenever, in the 2400s, I think it takes place, TNG. But the Orville, again, because of its popularity, I think, helps people to want to insert these things into Star Trek, because it would make sense that Picard would know, I don't know, who Homer Simpson is, theoretically. You know what I mean? It had a big impact on the late 20th, early 21st century, whatever. This is along the lines of that, where it just misses the mark, and it's kind of hilarious because of that, because of how ridiculous and, like, blatant it is. I don't know. And then we'll take a break, and next time it won't be fan fiction, the next video will be something else, but if you guys enjoy this, we'll come back to it another time. Captain Picard walked down the curved hallway, crew members hurrying past on their various duties. As he walked past yet another curve, he came face to face with a figure wearing blue overalls, a red shirt, white gloves, and a big red hat with an M on it. A bushy mustache sat below the figure's nose, and big brown shoes covered its feet. "Data, what on earth are you wearing?" asked Picard. "Hello, Captain. Recently you told me I should explore my creative side and try different things," said Data. "That's true, but this?" "I am attempting to embrace an old Earth video game character known as Mario from a popular series of video games. I have even studied the appropriate vernacular. For instance, as Mario, here is my new catchphrase. It is me, Mario." "I applaud your desire, Data, but this isn't what I had in mind." "Excuse me, Captain, but I must now attempt to extract a coin from the ceiling." Data extended a fist above his head and jumped, crashing into the ceiling and going straight through, leaving a hole behind. "Warp zone," called Data through the hole. Okay. Yes. Data would probably know who Mario is. The holodeck is effectively an extension of the idea of movies and video games brought forward. It makes sense that the crew would be aware of the pop culture figure of Mario in some way, shape, or form. However, I don't know... How do I put this even? I don't know if Data would feel the need to dress up as Mario. Data dresses up as Sherlock Holmes because he respects Sherlock Holmes as a character, and I think he gets something out of the idea that there's a human fictional character that's really in on inductive reasoning, and it connects with him for some reason. What would Data be connecting to with Mario that would make him think, yes, I'm going to cosplay like I'm going to E3? On top of that, the "it is me Mario" line makes me laugh. That is fucking hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. It's not good, but it's funny. The idea, though, that then Data would proceed to punch a hole in the Federation flagship kinda goes too far and ruins the joke? I don't know. This is a weird one. It continues on, and it's worse. It gets worse. But not entertaining worse, so I'm not gonna read it. So, that's it for today. Goddamn fanfiction. It is me, Mario. So, That's it. If you have any fan fiction that you've seen or kind of remember and you want me to look for it for next time, it doesn't have to be Star Trek. Next time I'll move on to something else, or maybe it'll just be potpourri and it'll be random things from different stuff. I want to do Doctor Who, I know, and at some point I want to do some crossover fan fiction, but whatever. Next time you see me, I'll be talking about something else though. So I guess I'll see y'all next time. Follow me on Twitter at Hannah Reloaded. Send stuff to the P.O. Box here. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, Patreon in the description, my transition fund down in the description. Until next time. What am I doing with my life?